All right, people, followers of the open source world, we're here with Dave Hakkens, the founder of Pressure Plastics. He's world renowned for the PhoneBloks project, the open source modular phone, and we're talking about the latest on precious plastics. So you just got back from Asia, big trip. Tell us about the next steps for precious plastic. What's the feedback so far from the world?
Um, well, good.
Good feedback. What are the main needs, the challenges? What's the next step?
Well, so we've seen quite some people started building, like enthusiasts all over the world, which is very nice. But I guess we also have a lot of people and organizations that want to start, but they don't really want to build the machines, or they don't know how to, or yeah,
Mm-hmm.
how to get started. And we also have a lot of people that want to build machines, but they don't know who wants to buy them from them.
Mm-hmm.
So I think one crucial step for us will be to try and connect those together,
Mm-hmm.
so they can really be built locally wherever that organization or individual is,
Mm-hmm.
and then find someone to build it. And then I think that requires some sort of online network to connect everyone together.
Mm-hmm.
Another option would be if we would provide like a kit or a starter pack for people that is easier to get started.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't really like shipping machines all over the world, so we prefer to have it made locally. But maybe we need to, if that sort of accelerates the whole
Mm-hmm.
process. So that's one of the big things we want to.
As far as the machines that people are after, is it extruder for plastic filament for 3D printing, or which one is it?
Well, so in the developed world, it's people really like the extruder to make a 3D printer filament.
Is anyone doing that successfully, like actually cranking out?
Well, so I think one of the biggest problems there might be the printers. So you have different types of plastic, but you cannot really print with polypropylene or polyethylene yet. A lot of people are developing it and making printers that can. So you can make the filament, but the printer doesn't accept it yet. And there are some types of plastic you can do it with. But overall, I think it isn't. It's more still on a hobby level, just like 3D printing was a few years ago. It takes some time before it's developed.
Right.
And the other, I guess, the most reaction we had from people was that they are really more interested in just cleaning up the mess, just like people in Asia. They live around this plastic, and for them it's just shredding it and collecting it. It's already a big step for them, and then turn it into something new. So they don't really care which technique or which machine.
Mm-hmm.
I think the shredder is the most used and built one because of that purpose, just to get rid of the plastic in the environment.
Just get rid of it and not necessarily have an end use for it, or?
Well, so it sort of goes step by step, and I think now we are at the point where a lot of people started building shredders and collected plastic, and now they have a lot of material, and they built the machines, and then they're like, all right, so now what?
Mm-hmm.
And that's something we might want to provide as well. So make more examples of proper things that you can make with it, or instructions or ways how to work with plastic.
Mm-hmm.
Because it's something I think you need to learn a little bit, just like you work with wood or metal, it requires some sort of knowledge.
Mm-hmm.
And we might provide some extra help there by making videos or something like that.
Mm-hmm. As far as the quality control on the filament itself for 3D printing, I mean, are people getting the quality control for that right? Because, I mean, to get good 3D printer filament, you have to dry it, you have to have a nice, like, I just saw that the people, it's called Maker Geeks, I think. They're in southern Missouri. They're making 3D printer filament. They're in Springfield. But their machine, it's something from China. It's pretty sophisticated. I mean, much more than precious plastic machine. And how is the process control there? I mean, are people doing it, or that's pretty much tinkering, a lot of tinkering?
Well, yeah,
stuff?
so it depends a lot of what type of plastic you work with and how clean is that. So that's something you sort of control yourself. But yeah, it definitely needs to be, the cleaner the better, I'd say, or the newer. And another one is, so the on the one hand you have the extruder, but on the other hand you also have something that sort of makes sure that it's a consistent wire that is always the right thickness. And that's why we made this thing. It's still in beta, but it's sort of a suggestion on how to make something like that. But that thing itself is still under development, so the way how to measure the consistency of the filament that is coming out.
Tell us more about that, since for us in particular, I mean, we can do things like recycle ABS, things like that. You can find that in junkyards. It's also very important for us if we make, so we're looking at larger 3D printed machines, just like there's the Prusa i3. Think about the carriages and rods, they're actually 2 inches. and a plastic piece that supports that, we came up with just initial calculations say that if you have 2 inches of rods, you can get about a 1 by 1 meter machine that with the flexion of those rods using 3D printed end pieces, you could get down to like 1,000th accuracy, i.e. a precision CNC machine using the same technology. So we're getting really excited about that. We always go industrial scale, so you can build 3D printer size machines or larger machines. But for that, once you get to the larger machines, you need more plastic. So that's where we want to recycle our own plastic and also do things like for the aquaponic greenhouse, we want to print our glazing. Once again, it would be nice to recycle that, things like CDs, which are polycarbonate, and then extrude that into the filament. Tell us maybe a little more about so how do you control the thickness of the filament? Like, tell us more about it, because we'd love to do that. How do we get involved would be the question for us. What are the main development points right now?
So I guess in general, our project is more based on smaller amounts of plastic, because I guess it's more easy for people to get started and work around, because you don't need to collect like a lot of plastic in the beginning. And it's also more like to create an end product in one, for instance, inject. However, we are also looking into, would it be logical for us to make, for instance, sheets, big plastic of sheets that could be used in other machines, like for instance for CNC milling or for building or just like plywood. But honestly, it's never really been our focus to do that, but it's definitely something that sort of caught our attention to maybe we should extend our collection of machines to also provide those kind of tools to people and really collect like bulks amount of plastic. So same for the extrusion. We built a fairly small one to make like 3D printer filament or small wire, but you could definitely scale it up and make something bigger out of it. We haven't really explored that yet.
Okay. Is there a leader in the field of who's doing the best 3D printer filament making using your work, and is that open source? I mean, their work. I mean, the derivative should be open source, right? Because you got CC by SA, or what do you got there?
What we got.
Your license is CC by Creative Commons.
Honestly, I put very little effort into the licensing. For me, it's I don't really know. I just share it, use whatever you want for anything you want. So I don't really know what the best license fits.
So
there.
Are you aware, for example, that someone can take, if you don't put a license on it, someone can take your machine and make a derivative and make it proprietary?
What do you mean with proprietary?
That means they do not any longer share the plans for that.
I guess.
Yeah. So
I'm okay with that.
Okay.
I mean, as long as it gets people recycling, and
okay.
I mean, it doesn't really matter. Even if they would set up a commercial company behind it and they would do it, we would still have our open source version.
Right.
So for me, the more people that are getting recycling, the better. We might need to put a little bit more effort into what licensing fits the best.
Right. Just for your knowledge and for the world's knowledge, the disadvantage of that is if you do not put the viral license for keeping it open source, the disadvantage is the person who does the new thing, if they put a patent on it or some kind of a protection, then you're prevented from doing the same, meaning you have to go to other options. So there's a way that you can close off viable open source development because you did not take the step to say to the world, hey, you got to keep it open. So that's just a technicality on the open source issue.
Something for the to-do list.
Yeah. It's just slapping a license on it, like CC by SA. That's all. Just making a declaration. Yeah, that's really good. So, how do people get involved in the project? I mean, I guess always it's about how do you manage a project? What's the platform for development? I mean, tell us briefly, like, what are your next